Bulgur, B-U-L-G-U-R, and this is a whole grain, and it's got about 6 grams of protein, easy to digest, super easy preparation. It's again kind of like rice. It's 2 parts water to 1 part bulgur. But with this, the great thing about it is if you had too much, you can always just drain the excess off. You literally can just pour boiling water over bulgur and let it sit, and it turns into this nice fluffy, but it also has got a kind of a little bit of a chew to it. There's a very famous salad called tabbouleh, and this is kind of a riff on a tabbouleh. So we got protein from the bulgur. I've got chickpeas, and these are cooked chickpeas. And I say that because I failed to mention that at a demonstration once, and somebody almost broke their teeth and were like, yeah, I just couldn't eat it, it was too crunchy. These are cooked chickpeas. You can use the canned ones, but if you use the canned ones, make sure you drain that the canning liquid out of there. That's often where a lot of the gas in beans. First I tried to not talk about bowel movements and not talk about that. But the reality is that is the end of every meal, right? We have to consider those things. But again, high in protein, and they're just delicious. They're a great vehicle for any kind of a salad. They hold so much flavor. They've got, again, a great mouth feel, which is something you hear about. And what that really is just referring to is the texture, right? It's not mushy. It's got a little bit of a pop to it. But it also, in here, kind of keeps that bulgur from clumping up. So it works as a great way to kind of loosen all of this up.
So those were dried?
Yes, dried, soak them overnight and then cook them again until, and anytime you're doing that, any bean, if you soak them overnight, pour that liquid out and then use fresh water when you cook them, because again, a lot of, and I always mispronounce this, it's called an oleosaccharide, is kind of, again, what causes some of the bloating and the gas is in that first rinse. And so when you're changing that water out, you're getting rid of a lot of those sort of natural phytochemicals in there that can cause a little GI disturbance. I always tell people too, if you are used to eating sort of a highly processed diet and then you get inspired and you want to eat this way, it does sometimes cause a little bit of GI distress because and not to get too nerdy, but you have a whole army of living bacteria in your gut. And so when you make a food change, whether it's you start juicing or you start eating raw or you start eating high fiber foods, the bacteria in your gut literally has to sort of change from, I don't want to say good and bad, but it kind of is. They change from the not so great bacteria to good bacteria. And so sometimes you will feel a little bloated, a little, again, just a little GI discomfort if you're not used to eating like this. So I guess my point is sometimes you have to kind of ramp up to eat healthy. So don't have this meal tonight and go, that was really good, but I'm feeling a little bloated. This is not for me, and then go back to eating cheeseburgers. Nothing wrong with eating cheeseburgers, but they shouldn't be 100% of your diet. All right, so here we go.
Can you give me a little angle on our bowl?
Oh, yeah, sorry. And feel free to come on in here.
Freeze and just smile like you're stirring. But stir like all natural.
Working baby.
Oh, yeah.
Kristen, you're a better hand model.
That's the one. Thank you.
Okay, so now, so the great thing about tabbouleh, this becomes like a kitchen sink kind of a salad. So to that end, I've got some diced, just rough chopped cucumber that I sort of semi-peeled. So I kind of peeled 3 stripes off of each one. I want the fiber of the peel in there. There's a lot of vitamins in the peeling as well. I just didn't want to have all of the peeling. So I just kind of half peeled them and throwing that in there. And cucumbers in the summer, this is going to be eaten cold. And if you put it in the fridge, as it sits, it just gets better and better. So this is the kind of thing where you can make it one day and eat it for the next 2 days, and it just gets better and better and better. Sometimes you might have to add a little more of a vinaigrette or vinegar to it as it sits. Wrong one. All right, so I'm going to add some diced scallions or chopped scallions in here, and these are out of my garden. I've got a little garden behind my house where I'm growing all sorts of stuff. So the red onions I'm using later came from my garden as well. The mint came from my garden. All right, then we've got fresh spinach. And so what I did was I de-stemmed, took the stems off, and then just what's called a chiffonade. I basically just making ribbons of the spinach in here. So I'm going to dump all of that in here. And like I said, we're going to have way too much food. But I think that would be a problem for this crowd. All right. And this, you know, I rarely make the same thing twice. And usually it's kind of based on what's in season, what I have on hand, what herbs are fresh in my garden. And as I said, this kind of salad just gets better the longer it sits. All right, now I'm going to go with some fresh tomatoes. And as we get into summer, the tomatoes are just fantastic. And this is also a good vehicle for your kind of ugly tomatoes. So you get those ones that are maybe not perfectly slicing tomatoes for a sandwich. You got the ones that are kind of, you know, got a bad spot here or there, or a worm decided to snack on one side. You can cut those bad spots off and then chop them up and put them in a salad like this. And already, that looks pretty good.
Start for me.
One more time. Oh, man.
For Nancy.
So you're blaming your mom?
I'm going on my personal.
I have blamed my mom for many things. All right, so let's make a salad dressing. This is what I want to show you. The fun to me is making salad dressings. And again, they're rarely the same thing twice, but I want to make some room here so I can show you what I'm doing. A lot of vinaigrettes are usually too oily for me. And a lot of recipes will say 3 parts oil to 1 part vinegar. But to me, you end up putting way more dressing on there because you're looking for that bracing bite, right? You want that sort of sourness of the vinegar or the lemon juice or whatever that sort of acidity is. But with 3 parts oil, you have to put 3 times the dressing in there to get that kind of bite that you want. So I do pretty much equal parts, and I rarely ever measure anything. Again, I'm going to get my small portable.
I know who you learned that from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I would need instructions on how to use a measuring cup.
Yeah.
Which end I would need to put around. So again, I'm just kind of eyeballing this, but I'm going just sort of roughly equal parts. And the great thing about this too is oil is a natural preservative. Vinegar is a natural preservative. Garlic is an antimicrobial, so it is essentially a natural preservative. I'm going to put in the equivalent of about 2 big fat cloves of garlic that I've rough chopped. I'm going to put in lemon juice, and lemon is also a natural preservative. So this dressing will last in the fridge easily a month if you end up having too much, which I'm probably going to use it all in this big salad. But you can make a container like this in a mason jar or in a deli cup like this, and it'll last you a long time. And it's great on leftovers, on a piece of grilled salmon the next day. You pour it over the salmon, or on asparagus that you had the night before. You can put it on, dip the asparagus in this dressing. So very simple vinaigrette. Again,
Is that in your recipe book by any chance?
so
I should know.
So we sold all 10,000 copies of my cookbook.
Yes.
So
I read it cover to cover. It's just I don't remember the
and
recipe.
me either. I mean, so.
But the story was great.
Well, honestly, the hardest part about that cookbook was measuring anything. So that was the writing part came easy. It was the rest of it that wasn't. Oh, nice way to move the lighting here.
Yeah.
That's what we call an act of God. Just happened there. Okay. So what I want to add to this though is some yogurt. And so what I've got is some lemon yogurt because I want to kind of echo that lemoniness. Where's that rubber spatula I gave you earlier? Any kind of rubber spatula. You want to grab you one? So I'm adding the whole.
Is the vinegar being used? Is it white vinegar?
So it's a good question. So this is a rice vinegar. So I use white balsamic in the beets. White balsamic is kind of my go-to for a lot of things. It has the flavor profile of balsamic, so it's a little sweet, but it's a lighter color, which means it doesn't turn all of this kind of muddy. You know what I mean?
I didn't know it existed.
Yeah, so it's a great vinegar. But in this particular one, so I'm not using the same vinegar twice. I'm using a rice vinegar, which is also slightly sweet. It's a clear vinegar, and it's great for really anything. I love different vinegars. In fact, my wife kind of gets mad at me because our pantry is a whole collection of vinegars and oils. But they are like wine. I mean, they're very unique. They have their own flavor properties. So they're fun to have on hand for a lot of different things. So I'm going to put just a pinch of salt in here. And this is sort of my go-to salt. And you can use regular kosher salt for that too. So I'm going to shake this up, and I'm going to hope this is the right lid for this, otherwise I'm going to be wearing this.
We'll know.
So notice how everybody else took off. You took the other left.
Yeah.
Everybody
My
else
white
is
shirt. Yeah.
They've been
Hand
to,
out slickers for the front row.
yeah, they've been
Like the
to,
Atlanta Aquarium.
they've been to SeaWorld before, right? They know when Shamu hits the water,
That's right.
it's get out the way.
I was thinking Gallagher.
Oh yeah,
Now,
the water bath.
yeah,
Yeah, these guys aren't gonna get that reference.
Hans, when you said lemon yogurt,
That's him.
instead of plain yogurt, you used lemon.
Lemon.
Okay, do you buy that?
Yeah, I mean, I did, but plain yogurt would work fine too.
Okay.
And if you wanted to use Greek yogurt would give it a thicker consistency. If you
Okay.
wanted to make more like a dip, Greek yogurt would work well. But this will, like any vinaigrette, over time it'll start to separate again. So I would shake it up right before I used it. So that's fine. Like if you go back to it in your fridge and you say, wait a second, something funky happened, it might kind of striate into the yogurt, the vinegar, the oil. Just shake it up again.
Okay.
But there's enough good stuff in here. It's not gonna go bad. Do we need a video of this as this is kind of the shot, right? She's not even paying attention. I got all this. Look at these gorgeous shots.
She's ashamed, and I just didn't feel like I should
She's not
do it.
even paying attention.
Now we're gonna fight.
Missed the moment. Sherry got it. Sherry was on it.
Text it to my mom.
All right, so now we're gonna stir. Now we're stirring.
Now we're gonna
Here we are stirring. We got plenty of stirring shots.
Slow motion starts where we're going.
So this, again, as it sits, it's just going to get better. All of these flavors are going to get to know each other. The little bit of salt that I put in here is going to help kind of extract some of the flavors from the tomato and from the spinach and from the onions and from the garlic. And so all of this just gets better and better and better and better. Guys, I didn't put any mint here. Why don't we just put some mint on the top when we plate this? So that is our tabbouleh, essentially. I'm going to try it just to see if it needs anything. And again, I tend to undersalt things, so if you want to put a little salt on afterwards, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I think it's good. Alright, there's two of our salads. And as I mentioned, this in the fridge, a day later, is going to be not just as good, it'll be better.
How full is
And what's the life in the refrigerator for that? 3 days?
So, 2 or 3 days. Only because the fresh spinach. Now, if this was something I wanted to keep for multiple days, I wouldn't add the spinach until the day I used it. So if you just did the grains and the beans and the salad dressing, and then add things, you could stretch that out for weeks. You know, I wouldn't say weeks, but a week. So there's our dressing for later use. All right, now we're gonna might get